SaaS business, so recurring revenue. We ended last year in kind of the mid 30s in recurring revenue. I'm not even including any other revenue because that doesn't even matter right now. That kind of the one-time stuff went to zero for us. Expected to end this year in kind of the mid 40s in recurring revenue. So growing SaaS business. We've been cash positive or really break even, generating a little bit of cash the last couple of years, but largely reinvesting in our growth, but not burning cash. Mm-hmm. And one other thing to sort of know about us is that we have a pretty lumpy business because it's SaaS, but it's very large customers. Our average customer is about $750,000 a year. So we have fewer but larger customers. So it makes for a pretty lumpy cash flow. And the reason that's important is
give us a little what industry it is that you're in?
Oh, yeah.
Give a little background on that so they know who you're selling to.
Yeah, we sell automation software into contact centers, and we help them to run more productively. So we take cost out. We help basically help them run their contact centers with fewer people, in essence. Classic automation use case. So going into this, we had put in we were slightly cash positive, and we had something we called Expense Desk, which is because of the lumpiness of our business, we would not add new expenses until we billed for new recurring revenue. And so that was a discipline that we had going into this, and it'll be relevant in just a second. So when this happened,
the first thing. Repeat that?
Yeah, it's Expense Desk, and it is the idea is not adding new expense until you bill for new recurring revenue. So not adding recurring expense until you bill for new recurring revenue.
Okay, so you don't actually spend in anticipation of revenue. Another way.
Yeah.
The other way.
Exactly.
To say. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we sell to big customers, we would book deals, and then they would drag on an implementation because of other projects and issues, and the cash would extend, and we would have added expenses, and we hadn't collected the cash yet. So that was a discipline we had going into this, which now we're grateful for because it's the discipline we'll use to add expense as we sort of climb back out. But so when this hit, I was an early denier that, this is just noise. And like many of the rest of you, probably, it got real fast. So on early March, I said the first thing we did was take our foot off the gas and stop hiring, stop traveling, and stop events. Events are a big part of our lead gen. And then it became clear pretty quickly within a couple of weeks that that was not going to be sufficient, and that we would need to do more than take our foot off the gas, that we would need to apply the brake. And
why did it become apparent? Give me two steps here. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm trying to bring it out for other people too. Okay, is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah. So early March, you say you stopped hiring, you stopped traveling, you stopped these lead gen type events that you were involved in, right? Like, what did you see then that made you say, I need to do this?
It was just the data. As it started to hit the United States, we were looking at the data, and we saw our customers start to pause projects that were in flight. And we also saw deals in the pipeline that were in procurement start to get postponed, because you think about our customers, they're contact centers, and typically big companies, 1,000 people in a great big room taking calls. That is the opposite of social distancing. So immediately our customers had to figure out, how do I get these people to work from home? And it became all hands on deck, because just really big security issues, right? A lot of it's minimum wage in a lot of cases. Many of these people don't have computers at home. Some of them don't have internet access at home. And so big fiasco for these companies to figure it out. And so they went all hands on deck, Charlie. So we saw our customers start to slow down in anticipation of possible quarantine and shutdown and things like that. So
this is what I was saying is one of the things that happens is that when we're selling to people, in normal situations, you were at the top of a problem stack that they had and said, yeah, we want to become more efficient. Then all of a sudden it goes from be more efficient. We need to change how we deliver.
Yeah.
How we deliver our service. We got to figure out how to all of a sudden disperse it to the homes, right? Well, that didn't have you in the plan anymore. All right. So you were postponed, as you said. So I think that the problem stack for the client or for the customer actually changed. So that was the first one. Then you talked about at the end of the month, you said I actually had to put my foot on the brake.
Yeah.
So that was the second decision. What caused that decision?
Well, we've got really data focused, and so we have a lot of data sources, probably as many of you do, and of our own. Not only, I kind of felt like part of my job was reading the news all of a sudden and studying the data, but we also have a lot of data sources. We're very kind of nerdy that way, and so we looked at things like call connects when we were doing lead gen, and of course monitoring projects and what our customers were doing and sales cycles. But we had a lot of data, and when we saw customers turn their attention away from our projects and our sales cycles, I asked my finance team to dig in and build what we now refer to as our recession budget. We built a recession and a depression budget.
Okay.
And we said, okay, what are the triggers going to be that will trigger each one of these?
Can you define what those are? What's a recession? What's a depression? You follow me?
Recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. And then a depression, my finance guy could say better, I think it's 4 or more.
Okay. All right.
And so as we studied the data,
a whole year where the economy goes negative, it would be the depression.
Yes.
That makes sense. Okay.
GDP growth.
Yeah.
Yep. And so as we studied the data, Citibank and JP Morgan Chase are big customers of ours, and we paid particular attention to their estimates of what was going to happen. And it became really clear really fast that there was going to be a recession, at least a recession. And so that triggered our recession budget. And so that effectively caused us to say and it's pretty austere. I will admit, we're as Charlie said, private equity funded. So listening to the other 30 or 40 CEOs from the portfolio of our private equity investor, I think our outlook was more austere, significantly more austere than theirs. And that was intentional. One of the decisions we made is we wanted to cut deeper, but do it once and get it behind us. And so we projected we wouldn't close another deal all year long. We projected deals, all of our projects would delay by 90 days. We projected no more services revenue, and we projected 50% higher customer churn. And so that was what I would refer to as our recession budget on the top line. So then we had to go through and say, okay, how are we going to take expenses out of the business? And so before doing that, we got together as a leadership team and said, what are our crisis priorities? So rather than just randomly strip expenses out to, starting with the biggest and going to the smallest, we set 3 crisis priorities. Number 1 was to protect our people. We culturally, we have a very human-focused culture, people-focused culture, but also for us, expertise is a really important part of our business, and replacing that expertise is difficult. So priority number 1 was to protect our people. Priority number 2 was to protect our customers. So as a recurring revenue business, if we took care of our customers, I told our people they would take care of us. So I told our employees, we'll take care of you if you take care of our customers. And so those were our top 2 priorities. And then priority number 3 that we would get to after we were sure we had number 1 and number 2 in place was extending our lead in the marketplace. So, so the way we thought about stripping expenses out of the business was focused on those three things. So how do we take care of our people and ensure, could we do this without laying off a single person? Could we do this and ensure that we were taking care of our customers' projects, their issues, and their business needs? And then finally, if we could do those things, could we then turn our attention to how do we extend our lead in the marketplace? So we did that. We used those three priorities to strip expenses out of the budget, and fortunately, we did not have to lay off a single person.
Cool.
And along the way, we were very transparent about it with our people. That's what we were trying to do.
You made a comment early on. You said, a couple of our clients are Chase and JP Morgan, I think you told me. And you said,
Yes.
so we kind of pay attention to what their forecasts are, but
Yep.
we have forecasts like from Goldman, okay, at this point, that says it's going to be a V recovery. Why didn't you believe that this is something that's just going to kind of pop right back? Like, why did
Well, even Goldman's
put my foot on the brake? Okay, that's a big statement, right?
Yeah. Well, even Goldman's
some of the
forecast,
other ones, some of the other private equity companies that you're in that portfolio, you said some of those leaders, those CEOs, they didn't do what you did.
They didn't. And I'll post when I get done, I'll post something in chat. That's a Canaccord Genuity article that I think is fascinating. There's it's an investment bank, and they went out and talked to 50 enterprise software CEOs, companies ranging from 25 million in recurring to maybe 500 million in recurring. But what they learned, so they also talked to the people with the IT budgets, and the enterprise software CEOs were far more optimistic about the recovery and where their results would end up than the people that own the IT budgets. So I'll copy that in here in just a second. It's a couple pages. It's got some survey data. It's a very worthwhile read. But that's the point, Charlie. So as we looked at, even Goldman has Q2 at I think at this point negative 30% GDP growth, and Q3 starting to recover.
Q2, yeah, it's the Q3,
Yeah.
Q4 that there seems to be disparities. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so principally what I wanted to do was cut deeper than I needed to cut if we could accomplish those three priorities. Because what I didn't want to do, having lived through two previous recessions, I didn't want to, do death by 1,000 cuts. And so I wanted to cut and then get really focused on extending our lead in the market, and not have to return to whether or not to cut. So we wanted to ensure we could survive the downturn.
That makes a lot of sense. But it's also what really was very valuable that you shared is these priorities, because they're cultural sort of priorities, right? And they're also your business beliefs on how you do business. You say, I'm first all about my people. If I don't have really good people and I don't keep my teams together, I don't really have very much to offer people. But then if I do have that, then I do have a lot to offer customers. And then my customers will then, if I take care of them, they'll take care of us. So we're in this sort of partnership. And then lastly, you talked about growth as a priority, right? But this is a little different. And this is where I want to open it up just a bit, Matt, is to say, let's talk about those priorities. So these are priorities which helped you make the right decisions for you and for your company, okay, as a steward of your company. What about other people? And what I'm hearing is I believe in the people. Yeah, I got to have good customers. But heck, people put money into my business to grow. So my first priority is growth, not my last priority. You see, are there other people like that are faced with that are on this call that want to speak to those priorities?
Charlie, this is Yvonne. I want to say something.
Yeah.
Say
it, Yvonne.
It's good to be here. A lot of times we use analytics too much, and I've started telling my customers that we must also use our gut and our history of doing business. And when everything got started, I was scheduled to speak at a number of places, and I called and said, let's make this virtual. We don't need to get on planes, and they all fought me. And weeks later, they called and said, we're going to do this virtual. And they said, how did you know? And I said, well, old people know stuff. And that's what I started saying is, old folk know stuff. And you have to take care of your people. You cannot spend what you don't have. And you have to continue to take care of the customers. So I'm getting more business. I'm doing virtual training. I am almost a Zoom expert. They now want me to do a video on baby boomers and Zoom using with that, Charlie. You need to add a password to our checking in, because a lot of people have been bombed with pornography. And so that's in terms of learning lessons around Zoom. Everybody have a password, or you could get, bombed by a naked person. So the thing is that we must also use what we know, what we learned from 2008 and before, and to just keep praying, and prayer works too. And I tell my customers that.
And what was your, tell me this, what was your, and what was the, I forgot, did you graduate from Spelman?
Spelman College, Emory, and I went to Johns Hopkins. Yes.
Right. So here we go. So we got the Spelman grad, and we got our Georgia Tech grad. The Georgia Tech guy wants to talk about data, and you're talking about gut, right?
So Harvard Business Review, I think they just have an article about using too much and being too much analytics driven. And we also, I teach soft skills. So you also have to look at what's in your heart. When you don't need to let people go. The people who you need to let go. There are some people you don't need to save. You know what I'm saying? And but we must take care of our customers.
I hear what you're saying.
I am data driven, but I also know that's not the only way to be driven.
All right. Anybody else on priorities and on the subject of, being just purely data driven or being gut? I think that Matt, though, to be fair to Matt, I think it was a mixture for him between data driven and also sort of wisdom or experience driven or gut driven, as you call it.
Right.
Is that not fair, Matt?
I wasn't coming at Matt. I was just making a comment. Matt, I wasn't coming for you.
I know that, Iman.
Each other.
I know it.
Hey, Charlie,
Good to see you, by the way.
Paul, what were you going to say?
I was just going to share, we are basically, I guess we're kind of in the in-between place as far as our strategy. Probably the most important part is we're trying to keep our folks. So, and a big chunk of our population, our biggest cost are our technical people. And some of them, of course, we're able to continue to have the engagements like Matt was talking about that were remote. But in others, they're not able to go on site and do the work. So I know from our CFO, he's very conservative. So we've got a lot of cash, but the other piece that he's done is try to position ourselves with the PPE money. And I'm not sure where we stand on that at this point, but the whole point of that was to be able to preserve those technical people, because those are very hard to get. They're very good. And I'd say of all the things in our company that is our biggest cost and probably the biggest risk if the money, if the business slows down and doesn't pick up, are those folks. So our strategy is to keep them in place.
Okay.
But the other piece, which I like Matt's comment, and I want to circle back to my boss and talk with him, is the idea of communicating, because I've got people on my team that have not been with us very long, so they don't remember how 2008 went, as an example. And I'm sure no matter what, they're still anxious. So that's our strategy right now, is to kind of hold serve, but to continue to reach and connect with our customers where we can.
Okay. But you said be conservative, you said cash wise.
Exactly.
Okay. So, more on people, less on growth. Anybody more on growth, less on people? Well, I'm going to say less on people like you think they're unimportant. So, but more on growth is what I'm asking. Is there somebody out there with that on this call? Wow. It's got to be somebody that's all about growth.
Charlie,
Yeah.
this is Dean Collins, Point
Hey,
University.
Yeah.
And we're definitely thinking about spending to refresh technology, because we think higher education is fundamentally changed forever. So we're going to take investment in upgrading our technology, changing our content, reducing the length of classes, because we anticipate that the corporate marketplace is going to cut training budgets, and they're going to need more help with providing certain skills and maybe certificate programs. And so we see this as a moment of innovation to get ahead of where I think higher education is going to have to end up.
So you're seeing this as an opportunity. You're seeing the market change or anticipating this change, and you're going to invest in your product in effect.
That's right.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That makes a lot of sense. And I know you got a good hunk of this PPP money.
We did. Yeah.
And you're not Harvard either. You don't have what is it? What do they have? A $200 billion,
40 billion.
Something like that.
40 billion? It looks like a big number, okay? And Point University someday will have a $40 billion endowment, I'm sure.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, wouldn't it? And you know what'll happen? It'll be right after you retire.
Absolutely.
And that guy will have all the benefits and not have to be fundraising every 20 minutes. Anybody else? What do we hear?
Yeah, Charlie, it's Marcus.
Yeah, Marcus.
Yeah, we've the voice work that we do. Excuse me, the voice production work that we do. We see.
Give a little background on what you do, and then.
Yeah, we're in the voice production business for technology. So we do a lot of the recordings that you hear at call centers and the like. But the opportunity specifically that we were looking at, or that I'm really kind of heading up, is how can we, with the nature of the business world changing and more stuff being pushed out, to home offices and so forth, there's going to be a bigger need to help the corporation communicate more effectively in a more engaging way with staff. And so what we're doing is looking at how can we help the the corporate managers rah their teams that are out spread all over the country. And so we've already got some ideas and things that
you're saying though, but what you're saying is because of this disbursement to work at home, work
Correct.
From home, this is where this need is sort of being driven, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
And it'll be more creative, and but ultimately it's about building the team. And a lot of those things were typically done at the annual or quarterly trade shows, and so that's not happening anymore right now, anyway. So there'll be, if we can come up with more innovative ways to tell the corporate story about how John in Des Moines solved a problem for a customer, and then he gets an award for that in some capacity. Then what we do is creatively come up with ways to do that with multimedia and of course voice. So it's really storytelling.
You're also one of those businesses that's getting hit pretty hard with not hard. You're blowing up and doing well because a lot of your customers are coming to you because they need new voice messages that need to be recorded because of this COVID and all that, right?
Yeah, we're getting quite a bit of that.
It's been an influx for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're pretty busy with that.
Not bad. Not bad to be in a busy position as opposed to sitting there twiddling your thumbs trying to figure out who can I talk to that might be interested in me.
Yeah, well, the thing that we did that worked out real well is we got 29 folks on staff, and we pushed them out remote pretty quickly, and so they're all remote. We got a couple of engineering guys at the studios, but most everything else is done remotely.
Well, I'm glad things are going well for you, Marcus,
Yeah,
but this is a good thing. So this is a new need, which is the communication needs to be increased because of the disbursement of the workforce.
Right.
That makes a heck of a lot of sense. Yeah. Anybody else investing in? But where are you? Just one question, Marcus. Where are you on cash? Are you watching your cash?
Yeah, we drew down a couple hundred K from our line of credit just to have it. We didn't want anything weird to happen at the bank and say that it wasn't available, so we took that down, and so we've got that sitting over there, and that's the main change that we made. So that's just kind of sitting on the sideline right now.
Well, you did, but you were worried that, when you might need it, not knowing,
Right.
even though things are going well now, you might need it. So you wanted to make sure that you had as big a cash balance as you could, even if you had to go into debt for it.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So it's just sitting in an account. We didn't know if anything weird would happen with the bank, and for some reason they said, "Oh, we're not going to let you have your cash or your line of credit." And so we went ahead and just took that out and parked it.
I'm finding that too with, I have a friend that's an entrepreneur who's very successfully sold a company and now he's an active angel investor. And one of the things that I asked him, I said, when the market was when the Dow was down to 20,000, which means we lost a complete third. I said, what are you and your wealth managers sort of deciding? What are you going to do going forward now that you lost a third of your sort of stock portfolio? And he said, I told them to sell, $1.5 million worth of stock, and I'll take the losses, but I want the cash. You know, now I'm not selling everything. He has quite a bit of money, he said, but I needed to put $1.5 million aside. So that's just a wealthy individual saying, you know, I've got his overhead is his real estate. He has other properties and things that, you know, for vacations and all that kind of stuff, but he needs money to kind of keep his lifestyle up. And he had to go cash, you know, for some portion of his portfolio because of that. So it's the same thing for individuals that are wealthy. Anybody else?
Hey, Charlie, this is Jay Vignali. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you. Good to see you again. You look
Good
great
to see you
there in
too.
San Francisco.
I'll just
San
share.
Francisco view.
I'll just share quickly. I'm president of Mainstream. We're a merchant services credit card processing company. And really, I think my focus has been, you know, we did a lot of expense cutting early on to try to get ahead of this. We had tried to get our expenses down by about, I don't know, near $100,000. You know, Matt made a point earlier. He made the point. Excuse me?
Why? You said I cut my expenses $100,000. Why did you do that? I mean, that's a pretty big decision to make for a business.
The portfolio and the revenue projections were showing that we were going to be down 50%. And so we were trying to get as lean as possible without trying to cut too many people. So we did cut a few people.
Well, how did you make those? I'm going to interrupt you here, Jay, a little bit, but you know, revenue projections showed they were down 50%. Who made those revenue projections? How come you didn't have a guy that made revenue projections that were up 50%?
Let's see, I made them, and then you know, our VP of Finance had done some analysis on, and then just working with my management team just to kind of understand people that were close to the numbers, people that were close to sales. Okay. And just seeing what the portfolio was showing. And the portfolio, we were looking at our portfolio volume on a daily basis, and we have, you know, the states, and you know, and the daily volume of all of our our merchant base was significantly going down, and you know, all the way to going down 40–50%. And so we were taking extreme looks to see that if we fast forward this 6 months, that, you know, how much of America could close down, and how much of our portfolio is going to be affected by this. And so we were forecasting to be down 50%, even more in some cases. Right now we're only down 40%. So
yeah, as you were forecasting you'd be down in some cases 50%. Well, there's some people on your team, I'm talking about your leadership team, that said, no, this is like temporary, you know, to be making cuts like this doesn't make a lot of sense. Or was there just pure consensus all the way across the board?
I think the consensus, no, there was more. Okay, so the consensus was, let's get these, if we're going to do something, let's take our measure, do the cut deep now. So this doesn't keep plaguing us every day. And so I've actually been struggling with that, because I feel like we maybe should have cut a little bit more, but I don't want to continue to bring in negativity into the outlook. Always talking about cuts. I think Matt said it really well, is you got to have, you know, I guess phases, or you've got to have your modes.
They talked about priorities, but you know, cutting is a simple thing to do, and it's fast. Okay. The other side of that is, once you cut, you've kind of determined that you're not going to have the assets that you needed in case the market sort of does move on you. All right. So it's a big decision to make that kind of a cut. Is there anybody that's working towards, and I'm trying to move towards to this sort of growth side? Are there other people that are saying, you know, I don't see the market buying right now, but I do believe when we start getting back to work, they are going to be buying. So I'm not going to make those cuts. I'm going to use the PPP money literally as a bridge to kind of get me to what I think is going to be an up market.
So Charlie, that's where I was going with this, was a little bit, was that, so we're not doing any cuts right now. You know, I kind of feel as we maybe should, but But the whole goal here is when we come out of this is that we want to have a company in place. We want to have a sales force in place. We want to have support in place. And so if we can just make it through this a little bit longer, we can definitely have that. And we're going to be down, like when we get back to 100%, I think our 100% is going to be 80%, but we're going to need our sales force to help us grow back out of this. And so all my focus is
right. Case, one last question for you here is, if you're saying, you know, we have to have a company in place when we come out of this thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yet you made a comment, you said, you made two comments. One is I had to cut, I only wanted to cut deep. I wanted to do it one time. I want to get it over with. And then you second guessed yourself saying, maybe I didn't cut deep enough. You know, so to reconcile those three statements, I got to have something on the way out. I want to cut deep once, and maybe I didn't cut deep enough. Tell me about the I didn't cut deep enough. The doubt you have, even though you haven't done it.
Well, you're because I'm trying to. I guess I have this mindset of wanting to try and preserve as many people as we can, and so I'm looking at this PPP as an opportunity to say, well, let's not cut, or if we can get this money, then we don't have to cut. But if we can't get this money, we're going to have to cut some more. And so I guess maybe I'm going back and forth with that. You know,
yeah, but what it is that you're turning on, and I'm going to open this up to someone else if that's okay, because we only got a couple minutes left, Jay. But what you're doing is you're doing what Matt did, which is your priority is your people. You know, and that's pretty clear. So, you know, on one hand, you got your people. On the other hand, you got money. You got your cash. You got to stay alive, right? So it's a real balance. It's a tension, I should say, not even a balancing act. It's a tension.
Yeah.
And you could see you're getting kind of pulled in these two different directions as you're kind of moving along, seeing the data come in.
So I'm now going to talk to local community banks as like my prime focus on this PPP and trying to find other sources to get the PPP. People that don't have 10,000 applications.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, we got a second breath here with the 320 million, I guess, that's available as of last night. Anyone else want to, I got one time for one final comment from other people or somebody else to share on what they're doing with Spend It or Save It.
Hey, Charlie, Ralph.
Can you hear me, Charlie?
Hey, this is Ralph. Oh, there's Jason.
Oh.
Jason, go ahead, Jason. And then Ralph,
Hey,
I'm going to give you the
Charlie.
last word, okay, after Jason speaks.
Yeah, I'll try to take 60 seconds. So, you know, at the end of the day, all of us know business fundamentals, right? So if the money's not coming in, you can't really spend it. And so, you know, what we're hearing from the CEOs essentially is, hey, if I looked and our revenue went down, then I had to make some decisions to ensure that, you know, one, we still have a company tomorrow, but two, that, you know, that we're going to preserve enough capital to maybe grow after this. What I love and was a breath of fresh air was Yvonne as an entrepreneur going, hey, there's a way that I used to do business, but I'm going to change that a little bit because I'm not going to just, you know, and the smaller you are, the easier it is to do this. But, you know, I'm going to look at different ways to increase my cash, right? I know that I'm going to reduce my cash flow by our traditional standards. But as entrepreneurs, one of the things that makes us great is that we're flexible, we're agile, you know, we can pivot. And so, you know, we've got to look at different ways of how to accelerate our revenue, even with our current customers, right? So for us, we looked and we said, hey, we landed this new big customer. They were going to be on a month-to-month subscription. We said, hey, we're going to give you 2 months free if you pay for the rest of the year up front. And they said, oh, yeah, that sounds great. And so we're increasing capital by thinking, how can we look at our current state and find ways to get capital into the company, right? We can't, yeah. And the smaller you are, obviously, the easier it is.
I'll give you another 10 seconds and then I got to cut you off. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I think
the thing that I'm hearing though is that, you know, like you made a comment, you said, if the money's not coming in, then you can't spend it. You know, I mean, that's very logical, right? But you know, what I find with entrepreneurs, and I find this even with myself, is we're in this business because we're idealists. Okay. So I'm like, well, the money's not coming in now, But, you know, like in 60 days, it's like really going to be coming in. I mean, I'm always looking that it's always going to be better. Okay. I don't want to admit that it's just going to like fall off. You know, I don't want to admit to a recession or plan that way, or admit as Matt did, to say, well, what happens in a depression? I'm like very optimistic, but the optimism could also, you're betting your company. You know, you got to be really, really careful with that. Ralph, what was your comment? Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you so much.
So close us out, Ralph. Better be positive, brother.
I'm very positive, Charlie.
Okay, good.
I just want to put in, and I don't know if everyone knows this, but if your churches are hurting for money, they are eligible for PPP also.
Okay.
Our church has received PPE, and not a lot of people understand that churches are eligible. And one way to do is contact your national denomination, whoever loans monies to churches, and your denomination, they probably know how to do that very well. So
Okay.
pass it along in case there's a need there.
That's great.
How much more positive can I be than that?
Oh, you're just wonderful, Ralph. It's so good to see you there. Thank you so much. Ralph and I have known each other for 25 years here, and he's a credit card
25?
fintech sort of guru. He's a fintech guru before the term fintech was actually coined. I love that. So we do have to leave. It is 9:45, and I have recorded this, but the thing that I didn't start recording this. I made a mistake. I didn't start recording this until Matt McConnell started talking. And Matt, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be on this call. I know how busy you are and how much is going on with you. And for all of you that have been on this call, I do appreciate your time and what you've shared with us. It's so great. But the, you know, the thing that I just want to just leave with you is, again, get that, as Ralph was saying, even for churches, is get the PPP money processed. It's free money and it is flowing, and we need to take it. All right. Now, what you do with it, that's going to be up to you. You know, secondly, is continue to stay close to the customer, like Jason was talking about, is that we can, if you're close to the customer, no filters in between, not sales reps, managers, nobody else. You're talking to the customers. As the CEO, you're going to know what changes that you need to make in the business. You're going to turn on a dime and know that you're making the right decision. And lastly, is find the people that are buying. There are people that are buying stuff. You just figure out within your customer base, what are they buying now? And how do you fit into that? Because you start bringing some money in, and it's going to lift the spirits of everybody. But I believe we're going to get through this. I just can't believe how difficult it's going to be. I think it's going to be very difficult, but we're going to get through this. You're going to get through this. Get as close to your buyer as you can. No surprises. Decide fast. Move even faster. Next week, we're going to talk about another hot topic, hopefully, but everybody's showing up. You've been so helpful to each other. And together, I really do believe that we're going to be a lot stronger. Come a little early next week. You know, I should sign on 15 minutes early. We always have a really good discussion. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. You're all my friends, and I am praying for each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
All right. You guys take care.
Thanks, Charlie. Take care of it.
Okay. Bye-bye, Paul.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.
All right.